The Northman is a brutal breath of fresh air amongst the dreary sludge of April and May releases. Slow paced, but not overstaying its welcome, visceral and filled with realistic gore, whilst the action scenes are not as common as you would imagine, where the majority of the runtime is dedicated to building a culturally rich and enthralling world. It's the third movie from acclaimed director Robert Eggers, a film years in the making, as a collaboration between himself, Alexander Skarsgård, and Tjorn, as a deep dive into the culture of the Vikings. And you know what that means. Accusations of white supremacy, toxic masculinity, complaints about no diversity in the casting, the January 6th protest, even one 4chaner saying they liked it. At this point, no one should be surprised about this. Dunkirk received the exact same treatment when it first came out. Look, we live in a world where historical accuracy is seen as a negative, where an attempt to build a world set in 9th century Scandinavia is met with a question of where's the diversity though? And the worry that a 4chaner might be happy to see a majority white cast in a land with a majority white population. When people see an accurate representation of a Viking berserker in this very artistic, gritty, and slow paced movie as being too similar to the QAnon shaman of the Capital Red, you know you have an issue with yourself. There is nothing race related in this movie, which of course will make it unpopular in the current climate. There's no quota being met, there's no discussion of the LGBT, there's barely a discussion of gender or sexuality at all in this movie. It's a very straightforward movie with no holes barred. Very old school, very old fashioned. We live in a sad future where people will honestly look back and think that Wonder Woman is a more accurate representation of the world than the Northman. But this movie's about the tale of Amleth, which is believed to be the original inspiration for Hamlet, which makes it even more hilarious when Forbes described it as a rip-off of The Lion King. It's nice to see that we still bow to our Disney overlords. The movie follows young Prince Amleth, who grows up to be a mighty Viking warrior after witnessing his father, King Arvindel, being betrayed by his brother Fjolnir. His quest takes him to a new clan where he grows up to be a mighty warrior, slaughtering those weaker than him, taking slaves, embracing his bestial side, until finally he's confronted by a witch, who reminds him of his forgotten vow to avenge his father's death. This movie walks hand in hand with spiritualism as opposed to religion, where mythical people walk the land beside normal tribesmen. His quest takes him to Iceland, to his uncle's kingdom. The movie is violent, bloody, knowing just how long to stay on the violence before suddenly cutting away so as not to make it cartoonish. But it is a dark and bleak vision of a hard world where the strong fought for what they had and the weak were oppressed. That basically guaranteed it to be unsuccessful though in a modern Hollywood world. The issue of slavery is brought up, but it's about white slavery, and the movie shows it as a very bare bones experience. How cruel and barbaric the practice is, it's just explained to you throughout the story and the characters without an upset college student having to get up on a soapbox. But the main character is a large, muscular, blue-eyed, blonde-haired man rising up to take revenge on the murder of his father, where women are not central fighting figures. Even though Eggers used research to put a female Jarl in the movie, but didn't want to put in too many because it would be unrealistic. However, that doesn't even demean their importance to the plot. Every single female in this movie is pivotal to the entire experience, where the audience is even considered so stupid that they're providing subtitled versions of the movie because apparently accents are too hard for people to understand. But Hollywood needs movies like this, just like it needed Parasite a few years ago. True diversity. And I don't mean in the fact of this movie having an all-white cast, I mean its tone, its seriousness, its visceral action and uncompromising story. Most importantly, its ability to portray the world accurately, and not try and sugarcoat it or polish it up to be nicer and prettier than it was. The world it crafts is based on a little touched on religion and people, where the vast majority of audience would only know it as a flanderized cartoonish style of Marvel's Thor. This is the type of movie that Hollywood should be pushing to try and escape the chokehold of Disney movies rapidly becoming the brand of the cinema experience, where a sizable chunk of your audience is being told they are not welcome just because they want to see a movie about their own history or the history of a fascinating group of people that had a huge impact on medieval Europe. Where a fairly mediocre movie like Black Panther is celebrated for its black power, but a movie like The Northman, which may I remind you has no racial overtones or even undertones, is seen as a worrying sign. It's a mature movie about the dangers of obsession and revenge, which never needs to beat you over the head with that message. Which is weird when people try and claim that it's for teenagers, even though it's 2.5 hours long of slow paced world building, which they definitely wouldn't accept. All I know is that this movie enthralled me. I didn't realize 2 hours had passed until I looked at my phone. Not long before that, I'd seen the unbearable weight of massive talent, and this movie felt just as long as that, even though it had an hour extra in the runtime. Now, I do realize that some people probably will have their grievances, and that's grand. Some people probably saw Eggers' name attached to it and thought, okay, this is going to be a low budget horror movie, which clearly it isn't. And some people probably got tricked by what I do think was a bit of shady marketing, where they showed so much of the Berserker raid in TV spots and the trailers, when really that's only a 3 minute part out of a 2.5 hour long movie, so it is somewhat misleading to believe there's going to be more action than there was. But I do only ask you this. If you are upset that this movie exists, that it has an all white cast, or that this movie might get latched onto by some 14-year-old boys LARPing its white supremacists in 4chan, would you be that upset if this was a movie about the Karo tribe or the Hadzabe tribe with an all black cast? Because personally, I'd love to see those movies just like I loved seeing this. And I know full well that if a bunch of white guys showed up in those movies, I'd be upset just like in The Great Wall. But hey, maybe that's just me. Alright, guys, thanks for watching. Take care of yourself now. Have a good one. Bye bye.